Welcome, 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 everyone. My name is Nim. I am the technical evangelist here at Kintone. I'm joined by a whole bunch of my colleagues who I will introduce very shortly. I'm very happy to see all of you and welcome. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good night, good happy middle of the night, wherever you are on the planet. If you have not already downloaded the code and the slides, I invite you to do so. You can follow the link that's right in front of you, bit.ly/KDP_react_2. And you can download the zip file. You can also, if you have not done so already, some of you are repeat offenders who have joined us in the past. And I'm very happy to see that you've joined us again. So this step, you may have already done it and you may not need to do it again. But if you are new and haven't done this step, please sign up for two things. The first is our developer account. This will hook you up with a free Kintone developer account. It's good for 1 year. And then you will also be able to create a Kintone subdomain. This is your environment where you will be able to create what we call apps, which you can imagine as tables in a database or spreadsheets in a workbook, only with more power. So if you haven't done those things, I'll ask you to do them. And then asking questions and raising hands. So we are here for you anytime today to talk about programming stuff. Genji and Will are excellent resources. So if at any point in time you get stuck, there's some code that's coming your way that you don't understand why you're getting these errors, please post that in the chat. Make sure you post your inputs and make sure you post your error messages, and Genji and or Will rise to the challenge and assist you. The recording will be shared, and there's a $25 gift raffle at the end. So please stick around for our whole workshop tonight, and you'll be placed in for a $25 gift card raffle. Okay, walking you through where to go to push the buttons to get the things that we talked about. So if you wanted to, if you haven't already downloaded the code in the slides, you can click on that link, and then it'll bring you to this gist page, which you can go ahead and then click on that download zip button right over here at the top right, and you can scroll down to view the other files. If you have not signed up for a developer account, you can go to this link. Make sure you do not use Safari. Chrome works, Firefox works, and make sure you accept the cookies, and then you'll put in your full name, your email address, and you'll fill out the CAPTCHA, and you'll be able to sign up for the developer account. And then creating a Kintone subdomain. You can follow this link. Make sure that you include no special characters, that you're using only alphanumeric characters and hyphens, and then you will be set up for your own Kintone environment, which you can use today, tomorrow, and for the next year. Who are we? My name's Nim. I'm the technical evangelist here at Kintone. My job is to help folks like you understand what's possible with our platform and how it can help you as you're beginning or moving through your journey of upgrading your software engineering skills, or if you're looking for opportunities to generate revenue. Kintone provides a platform that can help you do just that, providing like genuine solutions for small and medium-sized businesses. That's pretty exciting. Joining me are Will and Genji. I've already introduced them. Gentlemen, do you want to say anything?
Hi.
Hello.
Great to meet you guys. Yep. Sorry, Genji, and go ahead.
Oh, we're here to help. So feel free to post any questions.
Excellent. Excellent. Genji, I've got a question for you. What is the answer to the question of life, the universe, and everything?
I thought it was 42.
All right, I'll take it. I was hoping for a better answer, but yes. All we got is what Douglas Adams wrote and nothing else. Today we're going to get and post to a web database. We're going to use React. We're going to build stuff with a REST API, and this is a diagram of what's going to be happening. What I'd like you to do is raise your hand right now if this makes. Actually, no, don't raise your hand. Go and put in the chat on a scale of 1 to 10 how much this makes sense to you. 1 is This doesn't make sense at all. 10 is, this totally makes sense. This is, I got this. All right, 10, 10, 10, 10, 10, 10, 10, 9, 8, 7, 8, 10. Okay. Okay, cool. This is what we're going to be doing. Great. So very briefly, we're going to be, our time today is going to be essentially broken up into 3 portions. The first is building our front end, which is what the user sees when they hit a URL. And then we're going to be building a back end, which is what we use to create pathways from user behavior in the front end to requests to our database. And then we will be behind the backend. There's a web service, which is Kintone, which is where our data is going to sit and where we will be interacting with. And we will be getting and posting to that database. And so what we're going to make today is we've got this MongoDB, this Manga database that's in the back end. And what we're going to do is we're going to present the items in the list on the front end and then be able to add items in the list on the front end. And then once that data is added, we will be able to see then on the back end the updated changes. And that's what we're going to be, doing today. We're going to begin by starting a React project. And then we will call an API and output it to React. We will go over setting up an Express server, and then we will get data from Kintone and output it to React. If you'd like to follow along, we have an article series that, Will, you wrote this article series, right?
That's correct.
Will did a wonderful job putting all of the stuff we're going to cover today in a very thorough article series. And I believe, Genji, you're the one who documented all of this on GitHub, right, in our gist.
Yeah, if you find any mistakes, please file an issue.
I just want to give these gentlemen credit for the excellent documentation that they've put together for you. They've spent a tremendous amount of time to make it accessible and get it right and incorporate feedback incrementally. So I'm really proud of the content, of the quality of the content that we're getting you today, and Will and Genji have by far done the lion's share of this work. So they're the unsung heroes in the background. Thanks, guys, for making these articles available.
Thank you, Nin.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Folks, we're going to start installing things on your machine in just a few moments. And the first thing that we want to do is we want to make sure that you've got the correct versions of Node that are on your machine. So go ahead and check your versions of Node and NPM, and you can run these commands in your command line, node-v and npm-v. So like this. And as long as the Node version is over 10.16 and the NPM version is over 5.6, you're going to be good. And then if you have not installed Node, or if you're running into any issues, you can go ahead and check out this documentation, and it will show you what to do. Okay. Okay. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to create a new folder for your project. And we will be setting up React boilerplate in that project. There is an npm package called create react app, and it basically spins up a very sophisticated. Well, let me say it differently. It spins up like the it spins up a React app that is on the surface bare bones, but actually behind the scenes is incredibly sophisticated and will involve parts that we won't touch today. What you need to do at this point is create a new folder and then go into that folder and then type in the following command: npx create-react-app, and then front end, which what we'll do is it will install all of the whole package and all of its boilerplate React web app stuff into a new folder called front end. This will probably take 5 minutes or so. So this will happen in the background as we're working today. And then once it's done, you're going to go ahead and move into that folder and then open up that folder into your VS Code. So you can go ahead and get that started now. The magic command is npx create-react-app front end. Go ahead and get that started right now. Now, once you get inside front end, let's see. One of the things that you might not realize is so I've got 3 monitors in front of me. There's and there's a whole lot of windows that I'm managing right now to make sure that you guys are getting everything that you need. So please pardon any delays as I look in multiple places to find the thing that I'm looking for. What I'm going to do right now is I'm going to show you the front end folder. And here we are. So what you'll see when you open up VS Code is this front end folder, and it'll have a whole bunch of subfolders in it. Okay, this is the backbone of a typical React app, as well as the backbone of an npm project. What you'll see over here is we have node_modules. These are all of the npm packages that are the dependencies for the create React app package that we've installed. Then we have our source code, which are these various JavaScript and CSS files, as well as an image, and then we've got public, which is an HTML file and a favicon and various other images that end up getting displayed in our development server that we will spin up shortly. And then these files over here get ignored. This is a list of all of the files that will not be automatically updated into GitHub if or when we commit this project. And then package.json, which is in every npm project, and is the place where we track any of the scripts, the dependencies, any kind of linting behavior, things that might pertain to the back end, like the DevOps part, the building of optimizable source code. Sorry, optimizable code from our source. What we're going to do at this point is we're going to spin up the development server. And what we're going to do is in this front end folder, we're going to hit npm start. And when you do, you should be taken to a page that looks like this. It might take a few minutes to load, but it'll show you localhost at port 300. What you'll do is in, hold on 1 second. What you'll do is in this folder, CD in the front end, and then you will, we would npm start, and then will be taken to the terminal window will turn into this, and it'll tell you what your URL is that you can visit. That'll give you your development server that you'll be able to refresh in real time. So now what happens? What we're going to do is we're going to clean up these files inside of VS Code. A lot of this is boilerplate. We're not going to need it. So what we want to do is inside of the source folder, we're going to want to get rid of app and app.js and app.test.js and index.css, logo.svg, report web vitals, and setup tests. This is all handy stuff, but it's not handy for us today. It's just extra. Let's get rid of it. Okay. And then once we do, we're going to go into index.js, which is going to have references to some of these other files that we got rid of. And we're going to toss them. The goal is we're going to have a directory structure that's got front end. And this is a bit of a simplification, okay? But ultimately, underneath that front end folder, we've got this index.js file. We've got an index.html file, which is what gets rendered in our development server. And that's going to be under your My Project directory. What we'll ultimately also do is add a backend folder. This is where our server is going to be. So you'll see there's a server.js under there. So in backend, currently don't have that, but we do have a backend folder where Node has been initialized. And so we could actually, well, we'll get to that later. All right, let's go to the fun stuff and do some live coding. Well, the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to fix up this index.js file that we mangled. In this index.js file, we previously, in the previous iteration of this file, we had references to files that no longer exist, and we've removed them. Okay. Then we have references to, well, we have references to React components that no longer exist either. We're going to get rid of them. In fact, we're going to get rid of this whole thing. Okay. And what we're going to do is we're going to start running very simple code just to get something rendered in our development server and see that we can begin to manipulate the visual of our front end web page so that we've got the appropriate amount of control over it. So what we're going to do is we're going to keep these references to React and React-DOM, and we're going to use this render function. This render function is basically where we identify an element that we're going to, an element in the HTML that we're going to hook all of this React behavior to. And when I say hook all of this React behavior to, I mean we're going to be rendering something there. So this document.getElementById references an ID called root. Where is root? Well, in our index.html, we've got this whole bunch of complicated stuff over here, blah, blah, blah. This is one of the problems with boilerplate, by the way, is we have to move through a lot of CRUD and have some kind of a navigation telling us like what's important and what's not. So this is actually where it's helpful to be doing this together. All this stuff, you know, for our purposes isn't really useful. But what we want to look for is that baby right there. This is just a div element. There's nothing special about it except that it's got an ID attribute called root. And this is the element that we reference when we are building stuff. This is where all of our behavior is going to basically React looks for this element and it says, okay, like this is basically like the top level container for all of our behavior over here. And it's all going to happen inside of that div. What we're going to do is we're going to create my element. What is my element? It's simple. It's going to be a piece of JSX. What's JSX, by the way? Well, basically, we're not typing in JavaScript right now, as you may or may not. You may or may not realize. This bad boy over here. You know what? Let's make this a little bit easier to view. We'll do some word wrap. There it is. So this is not JavaScript. This is not a string because we don't have it in quotes. It's not any kind of native or primitive JavaScript object. But this is a JS file. This is a JavaScript file. So what's up with that? Well, remember I said that React has some magic happen on the back end. It's magic that we won't touch today, but what you want to know is that there's something that happens. There's some like tool chain in the build process that takes this source code that we're writing in, that when we find advantageous to write in this way, and turns it into machine readable or specifically browser interpretable JavaScript files. And the mystery of that process is I find it fascinating. I love the Webpack and Babel. You might have heard those tools used before. But those kind of things on the DevOps side are what turn this what's called JSX, this quote unquote syntactic sugar, the stuff that makes it nice for us to code, into the stuff that the machine is actually going to be using. So we're going to render this my element. We're going to keep document get element by ID, and we're going to save. And what we should notice is that our development, or what we'll expect is our development environment to be updated appropriately. So what I'm going to do is, let me show you. So here I am inside of our developer environment. And what you'll notice is something's broken. Report web vitals is not defined. So something in my code is, yep, there it is. There's some function that used to be called that's now not because I ripped its guts out. Let's get rid of it and we'll resave. And then that problem, I expect it to be fixed. Please expect errors. So here I am. Looks like my development server is working as expected. It's terrific. Let's start to make things more interesting. What we're going to do is we're going to make our first API call. And the way we're going to do that is by adding some information up here. So we've got our my element, and let's start to create a URL for an endpoint. Now, Genji, correct me if I'm wrong, but we're doing random user, right? I guess we are doing random user. We're not doing random user. I need a URL, and then I need some function that's going to manage the way that it behaves. So I want to handle. What I'm doing right now is I'm setting up a function that's going to handle the behavior of the fetching that's going on. What I'm doing is I'm saying, when this function is called, go ahead and fetch, and then you're going to fetch this URL, and wait until the response is received. And once the response is received, we're going to get it in, and then go ahead and log that JSON response. And we want to call that REST API. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and save. Let's pull our development server in, and we will open up the developer console. There it is. For those of you who are on Macs, it's Command Option I. And let's give this a try. There it is, the results. This is a random user. If we refresh this page, we're going to get a totally other random user. So this is Savannah Wilson. Heck, let's refresh. And Nino, Bradley, Dixon. Cool. Yeah, it looks like everything's working. Excellent. What we want to do is we want to not just put this result in the console, but we want to render it. So how do we do that? Well, we've got this call REST API thing that seems to be working really well. We're getting it in the console, but what we want to do is we want to create a React element. What we want to do is we want to create something that React can interpret as renderable to present to the user. And so what we're doing right now is we're taking what we're creating. We're going to take this result of JSON response. And so what happens is when this piece of code is executed over here, call REST API, it's going to fetch data from that endpoint. It's going to present that data in the console. It's going to then return a React element that we can then use to render. And I'm going to get rid of this function call up here, and I'm going to get rid of this sample, this original element stuff. We don't need that anymore. We'll save, and let's see the magic happen. Oh, okay. Well, this is not what we expected. We created the element but didn't assign it to a variable or tell it where to render, is what Vish says. Osama says the API call is an async function, so React is rendering before the data is received. Manny says React always gives me a ton of errors. I love it. Osama, you're absolutely right. The issue over here is React is responsible for rendering something to the user. And what we've done is we've told it to render something that we don't have yet because it's an asynchronous function. And an asynchronous function is basically saying, like, here's a black box. Just hold on to this box. We don't have the result yet, but when we do have the result, we're going to tell you, and then you can open the box and you can show us what we've got. Now, we made this function call over here, and we told React to render this function call, but we got nothing at all. So React threw us this very upsetting looking error. So we need a way to, I don't know, present something first until we get the real thing that we want to be able to present. So what we're going to do is we're going to need to handle the, we're going to need to handle the behavior of what we want to show. So we need to show something, and then we need to handle the fetching of data, and then we need to handle the updating of the initial thing we were rendering to take into account the updated data. And so how are we going to do that? Well, first things first, let's build the object that, or more specifically, let's build the component that we're going to render. We're going to create a React component called the render result, and it's a function. What we want to do is we want to return something. We want to return something to show. And so what we're going to do is we're going to return this piece of, it looks like HTML. Technically, this is JSX. This is like a template of HTML inside of a JavaScript file. Okay? And what we're doing is we're saying, hey, show this snippet of HTML. It's going to say React app, and then there's going to be something called an API response. And now we need to handle the behavior of what that API response is going to show, right? So the first thing that we want to do is the first thing that we want to do is we want to think about what is going to happen before we get our response. And then we want to think about how are we going to show our response once we get it. And that's what this little bit of code was that I was starting to do. There is something in React called the state. The state is like your bucket of present moment data that informs what is being shown. It's sort of like our source of truth for the rendering machinery to do its job. And we want to give it an initial value, which based on the documentation of this function called useState, we pass in an initial value in this way. We're going to pass in a value called nowLoading, which is our initial value for the state. And then what we're doing is we're using a little bit of ES6 to create an array with 2 elements in it. And the elements in the array correspond to the output of this useState function. So this useState function, we're going to pass in an initial value, 1 parameter, and it's going to output an array of 2 elements. The first element corresponding to our API response, and the second corresponding to set API response. So what do we mean by set API response? This is a function that's going to update our state. Now, how do we update our state? Because over here we said use state and we set an initial value, but now we want to update our state. So we're going to use another React function called useEffect. And useEffect, what it does is it times the updating of our rendering, right? Like what's being shown to the user. We want to update that. And we want to update that at particular times. What are those times? Well, whenever our data is updated, like in other words, whenever the state is updated, then we want our relevant display to update too. And so useEffect is a way to have us define that behavior. And this is how we're going to define that behavior. Okay. At the appropriate time, we're going to call REST API, and then what we're going to do after we receive the result, we're going to pass that result in to that set API response function so that we can update the state. And we want to pass in an empty array.
It's the rendering timing. So useEffect will run every time there's a change in the state. If we put a empty bracket there, it's only going to run once.
Okay, great. Okay, now I've got my handy dandy lender that's telling us that useState is not defined, which is true because it's not. We haven't defined it anywhere. What we're going to do at this point is we're going to hop back up to these import statements, and we're going to add useState over here, and that'll fix our problem. So here we go. This is render result. And this is what it does. It's going to show us a snippet of HTML. That HTML is going to be governed by this state behavior and this updating behavior. And now what we want to do is we want to render the result. And let's take a look at the code over here, or the developer environment, sorry, the developer server. And here we go. And you'll notice we had now loading as our initial state, and now we are being presented with the results of our JSON. So Vish is saying, Manny's saying without the array at the end, it runs infinitely. We are at this point going to spin up a server on our backend to handle the to handle the fetching and posting of information to our web service. The reason why we want to have a server do this work is because we want to avoid what are called CORS errors, cross-origin resource sharing errors. Those errors arise when we have client-side code making API calls to websites that are basically not allowing those API calls to be made off of those websites. What we're going to do at this time is we're going to prepare our Kintone environment. So let me go ahead and put this aside. And let's go right in. So what is Kintone? It's a great question. And in just a few moments, I will tell you. Yes, okay, perfect. So what is Kintone? So Kintone is a no-code, low-code cloud platform for teams to easily share and collaborate on their data efficiently. So think about it this way. When in the normal course of business, there's stuff that you got to save somewhere, and then you talk about that stuff in other places. And with Kintone, the data and the conversations about the data are all in one place in a way that's intuitive and makes it a lot easier for people to work together effectively. So typically you've got all of this data. This data lives in Word or Excel, or it lives in databases somewhere or whatnot. And then you've got the conversations about the data that might live in Outlook or email or Slack or text message or Skype or a whole bunch of other channels. And it becomes a real pain in the butt to share that information effectively, to find that information. You start to deal with a lot of search overhead, which turns out in a typical business person's operational life, 20% of their time is spent just looking for stuff that isn't put in an effective place. So what Kintone does is it takes away that friction. You've got an easy way to build data structures, to build forms that will hold the information that you need, and then will also allow people to talk about that and talk about the data and tag other people and follow a process-driven approach or a notification-driven approach to handling that information, all in the same place. And so you've also got a process management aspect over here so that the right people can see the right information at the right time. So for example, if you're submitting expense reports or timesheets, or even if you're doing something more sophisticated, but the data's got to get handed from one person to the next. With Kintone, you've got a way to build out those workflows and then hand them to the right people at the right time. The way that you build stuff in Kintone is with something called an app. And I've mentioned before, I'll say it again, an app, you can imagine it as a powerful online table where data is stored in records. Records are essentially the atomic unit of data inside of Kintone. And with records, we can create snazzy charts and graphs and tables, as well as, so essentially reporting on the data, as well as collaborating on that data effectively too. The cool thing about apps is that you can build them with a drag and drop interface. No coding is necessary. Why am I telling you all this? We're here for a React workshop. Guys, this is a question of how you want to use your time. There's lots of interesting things that you can do with your time, and building out a database schema is probably not one of those things. So being able to really quickly and easily spin up an app or multiple apps and connect them to each other and then customize them with client-side JavaScript, this is where the exciting stuff happens. Making the easy stuff get easy so that you can focus on the more interesting stuff. And then what happens is that if you don't know how to code, so some of your colleagues, for example, or maybe people that you work with, they can create the apps they need without bothering you. And then if they do need something from you, you can provide them with like a much more enhanced version of what they're looking for that goes above and beyond the native functionality. And this is what's really exciting about it from your perspective as well. So then ultimately this fulfills the promise of groupware, right? We want to be able to share, like ultimately this is your role as an engineer, or for that matter, anybody in businesses. You want to be able to share meaningful insights about data and have those insights be operationalized quickly. And so at any point in your role in business, you'll be playing some kind of role. Either you're building something where the data is held, or you're building the way that those insights get held, or you're doing the operationalizing, wherever it is that you are, wherever in that process. This is what we consider to be like the promise of groupware. You have this data and this communication about this data. It moves into insight and it moves into action. So why am I telling you this? This is like you're here for a React workshop, right? Well, I want to share with you how you can contribute in this ecosystem because I think this could be helpful for you. So first, as a developer, you can build Kintone environments that create a custom look and feel that integrate with third-party web applications to exchange data, as well as enhancing the native platform functionality with additional behavior. Inside of Kintone, we have a lot of tools that are available for you to use. We've got an open JavaScript API and REST APIs that are extremely well documented on our Kintone developer program site. We've got API tokens so that you can push information into Kintone in a way that's protected. Webhooks so that you can send payloads out to third-party tools easily. We've got plugins, which you can imagine as like like Chrome extensions. They're basically packaged. You're basically like packaged code with a config page that allows non-technical users to modify settings, as well as what we call JavaScript customizations, CSS and HTML customizations. These are this is like client-side code that gets executed in users' browsers to produce the behavior that they're looking for. And then there's really precise granularity and permission control. So you've got a very clear ability to make sure people are only seeing the things that they're supposed to be seeing. So I was talking about custom look and feel, and I was completely serious about this is a canvas for you. You can do really interesting data visualizations. Heck, you can even play space invaders. And so with Kintone, bottom line for you, there's sort of two umbrellas for the ways that you can use Kintone. One is for your own self-learning, trying out new JavaScript stuff, contributing your learnings to tech blogs to position yourself as a contributor in the field, sharing your projects with the community. And then if you're looking to create revenue, you can create and sell Kintone extensions. You can consult with firms on achieving business goals. You can even develop Kintone customizations for customers. If you're entrepreneurial, or if you're looking for ways to make more money. Okay, so let's go back to our live coding. And what we're going to do at this point is we're going to go into our Kintone environment. And we're going to create a Kintone app. So the app that we're going to create is a MongoDB. And what we're going to do is you're going to log into your Kintone environment. So the way that looks like is when you log into Kintone, you'll first be taken to this page, and you'll click on Kintone. And then you'll be taken to our portal. Your portal is going to look different from ours because very likely this will be the first time that you're seeing a Kintone portal. In any event, what you're going to do is you're going to create a new Kintone app. We'll click on the plus sign over here, and we can create an app from scratch. Okay. At this point, what we're going to, so we've got a app that's ready for us, you can create any kind of app that you want, even if it's just like a contact database, just something really quick and easy for you to do. What we can do is we can say like text is first name. Actually, what we're gonna, I believe we'll keep it easier to follow along. So what we'll do is, I believe the, give me just 1 second, folks. Yeah, we're gonna want a title. Let's keep it simple. So, and we'll change this field code down here to title. This is very important because basically each one of these fields that we're creating, that we're doing like a drag and drop from, they need a unique ID on the back end that we're going to reference in our code. And that field code that we're handling at the bottom, that's where we give the field its back end name. We're going to create a title and an author. And let's see if there's anything else that we really want. We can, just as an example, we can create like a date field created by record number, created date time. We've got, this is the magic for non-technical people and for you as an engineer as well. Because this is what it'll enable you to create really quick backend databases. You would click, you would change this app name to whatever you want to call it. Let's say, MongoDB, or you want to call it like book collection, or whatever you'd like. And then you're going to click on this blue button, activate app, which will spin up the app, and it will present it in your portal. It'll say, check out your new app over here. We're going to stick with the MongoDB goal. Yours will look different. It's okay. We just want title and author for now, and you can go ahead and add a few fields. So maybe your favorite book is Catch-22 by Joseph Heller, in which case you've got excellent taste, and you can add that record in. Or maybe you're more of an eclectic person, and Finnegan's Wake is up your alley. No judgment. I'm not a Joyce fan, but in any case, you can go ahead and just put like I don't know, 3 or 4 different records populated over here. Once you do that, we're going to generate an API token, right? So we need a way to fetch records and also update them. And so what I just did right over here is inside of this app, we've got this gray gear icon for settings. You can click into it. You can also click on the caret next to it. And then in either case, you're going to go to underneath the app settings. You'll see there's a customization and integration place where you can click, and then you're going to click on API token. Okay, so again, let me show you where that is. You can go over here, the caret, and then customization and integration, and API token. You could also click on that gear wheel, and you can go to app settings. Underneath the customization and integration category, we'll go to API token. And what we're going to do over here is we're going to generate an API token. This is going to be for our use in the backend shortly. We'll generate a token. And what we're going to want to do is since we're going to be doing fetching and posting, we're going to want to view records and add records. So click on both of those permissions and then save. View records, add records, save. And then update the app. One thing that's very important for you to do is the way Kintone works is when you make changes to the backend, you might save those changes. They don't get pushed to the production environment until you click on that update app. So you want to make sure that whatever changes you make over here, you're saving them, but you're essentially saving them in a development environment. And then you hit update app and then they get pushed. It's like the difference between git commit and pushing to it's pushing upstream. Okay, so now from here, what we're going to do is, okay, so what we're going to do now is we're going to spin up our backend server. And what we're going to do is, what do we have here? There we go. What we're going to do is we're going to now create a backend folder, and you're going to npm init the backend. So initialize an npm environment, and what you're going to do is, there we are. Make this a little bit smaller. So if you haven't already created a backend folder, you'll create it like this, and then you'll cd into backend, and then you'll npm initialize in backend. When you do that, it'll ask you, so here we are, npm init, and then it'll walk you through various different, it'll ask you for information that it'll use to populate the package.json, which you don't really need to worry about. You can just hit enter all the way down. Enter, 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 and then the name is backend, enter, 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 is this okay? Yes. And then you're going to npm install express, node-fetch, and cores. This is going to handle our the building of our simple express server. It's going to handle our ability to use the fetch function in Node, and then also to handle that cross-origin resource sharing. And then once you do that, you will be ready to continue. We can create a new file called server.js. And what we'll see is that in backend, we've created a file called server.js. Dave is asking if I wanted to use this with Postman, I could, for example. Yes, exactly. You would use the API token with Postman. Vinod is saying, so for every call you generate a new token. No, that's not accurate. So you would generate a single token on the Kintone side, and that will be like your permission. And then you'll use the same token every time you want to make an API call. You could separate out the permission so that you would create a separate token for GET requests and separate token for POST requests. But in either case, you would use the same token for the same level of permissions, and you would attach that token as part of the header for every API call that you make to the Kintone service. You can do that with Postman, and in Postman, there is a place where you would put in the headers for your call, and it would be a key value pair. So the key would be x-cybozu-API token, and the value would be whatever the value of the token is. And if you'd like more information on how to use the API tokens, you can go ahead and check out our Kintone developer program documentation on how we use those tokens. Okay, so now we've got this empty file called server.js. Let's start making happiness with it. What we're going to do is we're going to start requiring various modules, which are the ones that we downloaded with Node. A backend folder doesn't contain a Node modules subfolder. What you want to do, Osama, is npm initialize your backend folder. And const fetch. So these are all the modules that we've downloaded. Now here we're going to create some other information that we're going to need, which is the port, which we'll keep constant. And then since we're going to spin up an express server, we'll use the constant, the variable name app to handle that. And what we're doing right now is we're defining behavior for, I'm fat fingering that clause. We're going to define behavior for the express app. So right now what we're doing is we're handling these this cross-origin resource sharing behavior. so that things like our API calls don't get weird when we're making those calls from localhost. We're going to create an endpoint, which at the moment I'll just leave as a placeholder. And what we're going to do next is we're going to create a route for the fetch behavior. So what we're going to do is we're going to say if the user lands on a page on a URL called get data, please handle it in the following way. You're going to handle the options this way, and then do the following thing. And let me go ahead and turn on the word wrap. There it is. All right, so what do we do once we hit that route? Okay, well, the first thing we want to do is handle the options that are going to be attached to that API call, the headers, the method, so on and so forth. And so we need to define that. This is going to be a get call. And there's nothing else that we need right now. From there, we're going to handle the response behavior, which is once we get something at this end, or we're going to make the request to this endpoint with these options, and then we're going to present the response in this way. And then finally, what we need to do is we need to set up our server to listen on a certain port so that once some action happens on that port, in other words, like once once a call is made to that port at this route, get data, this server will do something. And this particular function over here is like a callback that lets us define behavior once the app starts listening. So what we're going to do is we're going to log to the console, listening at, and then let's say some ES6 template string notation to give us a dynamic value for this port. Okay. So what are we going to do from here? So and let's try running our server. So what we'll do, in our command line, we'll spin up server.js. There we go. It's listening at localhost 5000. So now we've got a development server that's spun up on port 3000. We've got our backend server that's spun up at port 5000. And what we want to do at this point is update our front end code so that instead of hitting up that random user place, here I am in my front end code, In my front end code, I'm going to change out this random user stuff. What I actually want to do is I want to hit up localhost port 3000, port 5000, and at the get data route.
Like there's a slash missing behind localhost, I think.
Right over
I don't
there.
know if that's going to fix it though. That's just something I randomly found.
Good eye.
Yeah.
All right, so let's fix that and actually put in our Kintone subdomain. So folks, what you can do at this point is you can put in your own subdomain. The name of our subdomain is dev events. Subdomain.kintone.com. And then what you're going to do is the /k/v1 /records.json. And we're also going to want to use parameters. And so there's going to be an app ID that we're going to need, which I will momentarily show you how to get. Our app ID. So inside of Kintone, you'll see you'll have like the name of your subdomain over here, .kintone.com /k/ some number over here. That number is going to be your app ID. For us, it's 28. For you, it'll probably be like 1 or 6 or something like that if you've been with us a few times. App ID and query equals order by record ID. This is just going to be handling the way that it orders things. And so parameters, and then over here in the response, there we go. So request endpoint. What we actually want is request endpoint. We're going to use that overloaded plus sign plus parameters. So then we get that endpoint over here and the parameters over here. And we're just going to concatenate them here. Got fetch options. And now the moment you've all been waiting for. What the heck is this API token going to do? So I mentioned it's a key value pair. It's a header that's appended to the API call, and it's going to have the value of API token that we created. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to save this server, these server changes. A whole bunch of alarming looking error messages over here, which makes sense because we just updated stuff and broke it. No big deal. We can, if you're on a Mac, it's Control-C. It'll close that daemon, and you can just hit node server.js. It'll spin it up again. No problem. Okay, so let's try this bad boy again. We're going to go back to our React app code. We'll refresh it. I am expecting we should get some results. Yeah, there they are. So you'll see this is our Kintone result. These are our Kintone results. And actually, we can see in the console over here the various different an array of objects. Each object is a record. Each record has all of our fields in it. You'll notice that there's a field called author. There's another one called title. This is exactly what we're expecting. Okay. And now we're going to put the final touches on by posting information into Kintone. So right now we just finished the process of getting that information. Now let's make a few tweaks so that we can post. But let's render this so that it's a little easier to wrap our brains around. That's not what we want anymore. What we want to return is an array of lists. What is an array of lists? It's going to be this JSON response. And what we're going to do is we're going to pick off the records key from this returned object. And if you recall, that records key, so this was our response, and then we had this records key, which was an array of objects. Each object was a record. And inside of each record, we have key value pairs for the name of the field, as well as various properties that are associated with the field that are also held in their own object. What we want to do is we're going to map through all of those records. So for each record, we're going to lean on some JSX over here. We're going to create a list, and we want the record title.value written by record.author. And then we're going to return that array of lists. So this record.title.value is like a set of basically nested objects that we're ultimately going to pick off the value of this title, the value of this author inside of this record object. And then this is going to be a feature of the API response over here. So now I just saved, let's refresh. And there we go. I've got this very nicely formatted list of records, which is a title written by and then whatever the name of the author is. Okay. Now we're getting thrown a warning over here, which is a React issue around basically keys. Each one of these records needs to, each one of the items in this array needs to be uniquely defined programmatically. And so what we're going to do is inside of this list item, we're going to introduce a key attribute, and we're going to pull off the existing record ID value, which is already a unique value that we're going to use, and we'll save. And all this does is some magic React stuff behind the scenes. It's going to make this that warning go away. Okay, we're almost there. We've done the getting. Now we're going to do the posting. So how do we do the posting? Well, we've got this data. It looks really nice. And from here, we're going to need to create a new route. And so we're going to go into our server.js. Now, just remember, when we go into our server.js, we start messing around. That server daemon that's running in our terminal is going to throw us an error. That's not a problem. We are expecting it. Let's go back to our server.js file and start messing around. Okay. Well, we're going to need different endpoints over here, since we're making a call to a get endpoint and we're about to make a call to a post endpoint. So what we're going to do is we're going to change this request endpoint, and I can use conveniently VS Code's Command D functionality to change multiple names at once. So we're going to call this multiple records endpoint, right? And then we're going to create another one called single record endpoint. And that is going to be very similar to what we have over here. Only we're going to change it. We're going to take out that S. That's it. Okay. And when we get data, we'll see we've already updated multiple records endpoint. Perfect. Now we need to create another route. What I'm going to do is I'm going to copy this existing route and we'll modify it. Let's save some time. So that we actually want to change get to post over here, and same thing over here, post. And this method we're going to change to post. This header can remain the same because we initially created for our API token both getting and posting privileges. But if you didn't do that, you'll need a separate API token. From here, we're going to need to clarify what exactly it is that we're posting. So there's a request body that now becomes relevant for us to define. What we need to do is it's going to look like this format. It'll be the app ID, and then we'll need an object called record, which will have the following values. It'll have title, and author, go. And what we'll want over here is the value for the author is going to be in the body of the request, and the value for the title is also going to be pulled. It's going to be pulled from information that we've submitted. If you didn't use the field codes title and author, if you left them as text or text_0, or maybe you changed them to something else, this is going to throw you off right over here. This is where those field codes that we changed on the Kintone side, where I said, hey, this is where we determine a unique ID for these fields in the backend. This is where it matters, right over here. So we've got the method, the headers, and then we need to define the body as well, which is going to be JSON.stringified version of request body above. Okay, and then option is set. Let's see. We're going to change this to single record endpoint, as well as the fetch options. They're actually not fetch options anymore because we're not fetching. We're now posting, so we can call them post options. And then let's take a look. We're going to the const JSON. We're going to receive the response, and then we're going to JSON it. We handled the routing behavior on the server side, but what we need to do now is we need to update the HTML to include 3 new elements in our HTML. We're going to need 2 text fields for the user to input information, as well as a save button, some kind of a button that's going to send the data when a button is clicked, and then we're going to re-render the list. So, okay, now we've got 2 endpoints. So let's change this up. We're going to now, this is going to be our get records endpoint. So get records endpoint. And then we're going to create another endpoint called post record endpoint. Okay, so we need to now handle our state in our REST API request. So because we're going to be creating a state for the 2 new fields that we're putting in, for the title and the author. So what we want to do, we can do it right here, const title value, set title value. So this is going to be the value and the set function for it. And we're going to pass in to as the initial value of the state, we're going to pass in an empty string. And then we'll have the same for author value and set author value. State over here. Perfect. Okay, we are almost done. Now what we need to do is make the rest of the owl. And the way that we're going to do that is inside of our rendered result over here. We've got the API response. I'm going to copy and paste some all this is a form. Here's a label. Here's the input for title value. This is actually where title value matches up over here with title value. Okay. The same thing with author value. Okay. So and then we need to handle the behavior when this information is changed. So what we're going to do is inside of render result, we want to create some stub functions to handle the title change and handle the author change. And handling the button click as well. And that'll correspond again with the 3 different elements that we just added. We added a button, on click, button click happens. We added an input field, and on change, handle title change happens, and the same thing happens with author change. Okay, so now if I take a look at my developer console, sorry, not console, my developer server, and I looks like I built something, and it looks like it's an extra div somewhere. There it is. Let's try that again, folks. Cool. Cool. Let's go back to our stub functions over here so that we can actually do something with that. And so for what we're going to do is for handle title change and handle author change, it's very simple. We are using the function, we're going to set title value. All we're doing is we're passing in this the value of this what is in the title field. And for handle author change, it's going to look very similar. And then we want to handle the button clicking. So what we want to handle when when a button is clicked, we're going to make a REST API call to the Express server, and then we want to re-render the UI to show that the data is being added, and then re-render the UI with the latest data. So we want to update the API response state to include a now loading message. So remember this guy, set API response. What we want to do is we want to take the response and we want to concatenate with the following list items. So it's like demonstrating that the data is being added. Okay, and what we want over here is, and we're noticing we're using the key 0. That's because 0 is guaranteed to be a unique number in the key. All of our record IDs in Kintone start with 1, so there's no way there will be a 0. Okay, and so from here we'll add a now loading, and after we do that, we want to add new value. What is this add new record? We've never seen this before. We're going to build it. So what is add new record? So going to be a function that's going to take in the type, take in the author. And what do we want to do with it? So first we want to define the body parameters that are going to be needed for the API call. So let's actually, here we go. We define the record body parameter. That'll probably make sense to you a lot more than it did before. And actually we can simplify this. Just say, thanks ER6. The key and the value are the same. We don't need to double them. We're going to define the options that we need for our to make the post call to our server. So let's create those options right now. Method is going to be post. The headers are going to be, and these are the headers that are getting passed into our Express server from our front end. These are not, this is not the options that are being passed from our back end into Kintone. So we've got two parts to this routing behavior over here, okay? So here we define the headers, and then we're going to JSON stringify the record body parameters that we had just created above. Okay, so we're getting in there. So now what we want to do, so we've got the record body parameters. We're going to pull this from the input elements in the HTML. We've got the options, And now what we need to do is create the actual post request. So we're going to create a response. We go await and add record. So we're cheating a little bit because we're using a fetch function. And this is technically a post request, but the effect will be the same without any issue. JSON and I'm going to console log. And return the JSON. There it is. So here we go. This is the body that we're passing in. This is the options that among which the body will be a key value pair for. And then this is the code that handles our posting. It's going to post to this endpoint with the options that we just defined above. And then it's going to handle the response in JSON. Okay, let's save.
App.use and then open close parenthesis, then express.json, open and close parenthesis.
Thank you. Like this.
Something, yeah, something like that.
All right, we're gonna give it a shot. Some feature of Express that it's been updated. Cool, thanks a lot, Leonard. Let me go ahead and reset my server. All right, server has been refreshed. I'm gonna go ahead and refresh this page. And let's try this again with Catch-22 by Joseph Heller. Oh, here we go. Content, so this response is from Kintone. It's telling us content type is null or invalid. So what that tells me, if we define content type as part of the body, as part of the headers that we're passing from our backend server into Kintone. So in other words, right now we don't have a content type, but if we did, and if we gave it the content type of application/JSON, just like we do in the, yeah. So this right now from our from our front end to our back end, we're passing in a content type. From our back end to our server, we were not, and so Kintone threw us the error. So let's see what happens when we add this header in. And I'm going to go ahead and, okay, great. So I have great news for everyone, which is that this response from Kintone is an indication that our data has been passed into Kintone correctly. So what we can now expect is if I go into Kintone right now and I refresh the page, I will see test and test somewhere. Here we go. Somebody dropped in hello world. We're going to do test and test. So terrific. So now all we got to do is we got to render the response. Something's not working with the response rendering. So here I am back in index.html. And what I am expecting is some kind of behavior where I'm able to update the rendered result. So what we're going to do, we're going to define a new state that's going to take care of when the use effect hook will run. And that way we can use effect when the form is submitted. So we'll call this success counter, and we'll set the success counter. And we'll set the state to 0. And we are going to call the set success counter function on button click. And then it'll update after a successful REST API call. So what we're going to do here inside of button click, so we got now loading, right? We add new record. After add new record is successfully resolved, we're going to set success counter. We'll increment it by one. And then what's going to happen is we need the use effect hook to run whenever the success counter state updates. So we're going to do that by setting the success counter as the dependency array, which I believe Vish was the one who was talking about that earlier. So where is that? Ah, here it is. So when success counter updates, oh, and we'll just need to define it up above use effect. Then we're going to update use effect. The use effect hook will run after that record is updated. Okay. So we'll save here. Let's update our, let's refresh our developer environment. And now let's put in Catch 22 by Joseph Helen. Hey, go team, we did it.
Hey.
All right.
That's cool.
So this is it. This is it, folks. We're about to get off the train. We did a lot today. I mean, really, like from soup to nuts. We started a React project. We created an initial rendered result based on an API call. Then we incorporated the use effect and the use state hooks to handle the rendering given asynchronous code. We spun up a server to avoid CORS errors and make that call on our behalf to the Kintone service, which then we ended up building a soup to nuts. We built a front end and a back end, and we connected it to Kintone, and we created two routes, a get and a post route. And we were able to then post information into Kintone and have the updated result render on our web application. So what are some of the cool new things you can do after this? You can handle the response so that it renders as tables. You can call a public API or make the post request more sophisticated. You can deploy your app to Heroku. You can share your experience on dev.to. If you have any questions, you can share your code on the Kintone developer community forum or on Stack Overflow. All right, I want to thank you for your participation.
Thank you so much for everyone participating. Shout out and thank you to our community partner, HackBuddy by JavaScript LA. If you guys really enjoyed this content, there's future workshops coming. Join the meetup at the URL link of bit.ly/KDP_events.